going to make a Theresa May tit of myself as soon as I came on stage. There was just no question that I could hold myself back, and I've done it. Here we are. Right, we're going to talk today about the world of work in 2030. So we're going to step forwards in time. And Sanna Martin left us with this very interesting thought, that the difficult stuff, it's not the policies, it's not even the AI, it's not the tech, it's the people. How do we take people with us? And how do we work with them? You've all told Nick that you're leaders. How do we lead successful teams of people in a world that's changing all of the time? Before we do that, I just want to introduce you to someone rather special. And I met her a few years ago after a couple of slightly spicy birthing experiences, that was me, at University College Hospital, London. And as a result of these slightly chaotic births, they invited me to chair their maternity liaison committee, which sounds very grand. And as part of that, I had to go along to various training sessions and observe midwives and medics doing their job. And the idea was to give them feedback and think about how they were engaging with patients. So the person I need to introduce you to is this lovely lady who is 9 months pregnant and giving birth to a rubber baby. Well, I think she's got a nice little blonde bob, so for the purposes of the day, we can only really call her Mandy, can't we? So she can be Mandy for us. And Mandy's got quite a few problems because there's me and a team of medics, and we're sat behind this massive one-way mirror looking into a training session. And it starts off with one midwife who's taking care of Mandy as she tries to deliver her beautiful rubber baby. But as Mandy develops more problems, she starts bleeding and the baby's heart rate, the midwife starts to call in other people to come and help. Now, this is for everyone except for me, who thinks I'm basically in a scene of casualty and I'm having the best day ever. This is really stressful because all the medics are being filmed the whole time, and when they finish, they go next door into a room and play it back and talk about all the mistakes they've made. So not only is every time they address something for Mandy and her baby, some bugger in the back room with me presses another button to give her another problem to see what they do next, but also it's time pressured and they're being reviewed on it. And there's three things that strike me about how these teams cope with this situation that are going to be relevant to what we talk about in the world of work moving forwards. The first is this 100% locked-in focus on Mandy and the baby. There is nothing else going on. They are just in that space. The second, really closely linked to that, is that one person is responsible for communicating with the outside world. There is literally one phone line, and all that person is doing is asking, they're assigned, so pretty quickly somebody's assigned to manage the phone, is asking for additional specialist help when something else goes wrong, and stopping anyone in the room being called off to other crises. That's all they're doing. So really, really focus on boundary communications. And the third thing is the astonishing, staggering joy that you can feel when you successfully deliver a plastic baby in a theatre. The whole place goes bananas. Like, the absolute joy of it is a delight to watch. So we're going to have a think about that in the context of the way many of us are working now. And as Mandy beautifully introduced, my team and I interview people day in, day out about work, and we look at that with the big data. So today we're going to have a look at some data, and we're also going to have a look at some of the things that we hear really often about what's going on at work now. And we're going to ask you if you recognize some of the themes that come up, okay? So the first theme that we hear a lot about is that work used to be more fun. We used to enjoy work more than we do now. Work used to be a good crack. We worked hard, but we laughed. We went out on Fridays and had a drink. I miss that. Now, Joe, hold on to your bottle. There's a little bit of participation, but it's not bad. It's not bad. It's going to be okay, I promise you. Okay, if that seems familiar to you, I'm going to ask you in a second. We're going to do it together. Nobody's exposed. We're going to hum, okay? So if that seems familiar, okay. So, all right. So if that feels like work used to be a bit more fun, can you give me a hum now? Quite soft. You're getting used to it. We'll try another one. Let's see. Okay. Get a bit of a tone with this as well, so it's quite an interesting way. Okay, second one we hear a lot. I'm always on. I get messages constantly, email, Teams, WhatsApp. I was talking to a lady doing my hair this morning. She says, customers WhatsApp her at 10 o'clock at night about appointments and hairstyles. If they stop, I start feeling anxious, so then I start sending messages. And sometimes, at the end of the week, I just feel like all I've done is read and send messages. Okay, give me a hum if that seems like it might be familiar to you. Now, hum. Well, you're a bit grumpy about that, actually. You sound a little bit like my dog when he's hungry. Okay, let's see. Right, how about this one? A lot of tech failure. Oh, yeah. Don't need a hum. Lady in the front row's got a broken printer. Okay, everyone's going on about AI, but here we're lucky if the printer works. Give me a hum. Oh, you're all right about that. You're not too pissed off. It's the messages that are pissing you off. All right, okay. And then this one is obviously from somebody younger. Bosses talking about how they work 70, 80-hour weeks, got pissed at lunch, and then married a colleague. I feel we might have missed out in some ways, but in another way, it's all a bit tragic. Can anyone in the audience hear someone in their lives, niece, nephew, kid saying that? Give me a hum. Yeah, you're all a bit like, yeah, it's a bit embarrassing, but yeah, okay, fine. How about this one from somebody older in the workforce? These young people, well, they never pick up the phone and talk to someone. What the hell is wrong with them? Who recognizes that? Give me a hum. That's your favourite, crikey. Nobody expected that today. Okay, so we've got some common issues, and we know what they are, and they're quite in contrast to what we saw in that delivery room. Now, it's very dull in presentations to reference COVID, so we'll do it really fast, and then we'll get out of there, okay? Pre-COVID, people's biggest complaint was, similar to now, the sense of overwhelm. And if you interview people whose career peaks were in the 70s, 80s, early 90s, they'll say, do you know what? Work was really intense. There were loads of problems with it. But when you went home, you just went home, and no one could really get you unless they called your landline. And then, of course, we add in all the stuff we know, BlackBerries and laptops, and calls with San Francisco and Sydney and Singapore, often in the same day. And the jobs get bigger, and that's one piece of it. But the second piece of it is this huge social economic shift where women get more and more involved in jobs and get more and more senior. And we move from what we used to think of as a breadwinner model where daddy, tiger who comes for tea, goes out, does a job, mummy does something local, helps out, works in the post office, does a small job, runs the house. And we move to a world where two adults are in a household trying to make all of this expansion of work, and they don't know how to do it. And you add in a couple of kids, you add in a dog, you add in some aging parents, and that sense that I can't breathe, I don't know what I'm doing wrong, what am I doing wrong, is overwhelming. And then Sheryl Sandberg comes along really helpfully, and she says, you know what the problem is? You're just not working hard enough. You need to lean in, mates. You need to just try a little bit bloody harder. And everyone's like, good God, I've got a whiteboard, I've got an Excel sheet, I've got a pressure cooker. I don't know what else I'm supposed to add into this mix, right? None of this is working for me. So that's all going on. And then we get COVID, and everybody gets sent home, and everybody says it won't work. And actually, it's sort of, those of us who schooled our children during that period will never, ever properly recover. But other than that, it sort of works. And then we come out of it with this we're not going to go into the details of this, we haven't got time today, but 6 potential working models, okay? So we come out of it and we kind of go, it isn't just you turn up and you do your job. Now there's 6 different ways that you could do it. You could be remote 100% of the time. You can be remote with regular strategy days. You can have fluid hybrid. You're all grown-ups. You turn up when you want to. That'll be 1 day a week. Bosses won't like that. Then we'll move to fixed hybrid because you didn't turn up when I gave you a choice. So now you have to come in Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays, or 60% of the time. Weird insight here. I feel a bit guilty saying this, but if you interview people, they always say they want fluid hybrid. They want to be flexible. They want to make choices. When you interview them when they move to a more fixed system, they actually find it much easier to manage. It's actually easier to know when you do and who's going to be there, where you're going to sit. Hot desking, don't get me started, whole different presentation. Okay, then you've got compressed time. Now, compressed time, we hear a lot about the 4-day week. There's a campaign to tell you it's the best thing since sliced bread. It works really, really well if your job is confined by its location. So if you work in a printer's, if you work in a factory, if you're a midwife, you can do a 4-day week, no problem. If you work in a knowledge-based office, information is really, really hard to manage. But then there's an emerging model, which I really urge you to just keep an eye on. I think you'll start seeing more about it, which is a 5 or 6 hour working day. They've done a lot of work on it in Iceland. They do work on it in Germany. And it's a very different way of managing our comms. It's like you put your phone into a box when you go in. You have a much more structured day. They limit comms. You do your job, and you piss off and go and do something else. Don't know who that might appeal to, but I'll leave it out there. Okay, and then there's 100% return to the office, which of course is dominating all of the headlines. Interestingly, the baseline data doesn't seem to see a big trend. I know WPP went last week with a 4-day week. Pretty popular, adding 2 Fridays into the mix, isn't it? Hoo-hoo. Yeah, I reckon Omnicom, who's their main competitor, will be getting a lot of CVs this week. What we know from Amazon, the initial data is that about 50% of people have applied for different jobs. A lot of people felt that it was a move to get rid of lots of people without paying redundancy. The challenge from the data that we see is that the people who tend to leave are the ones with the highest potential, who've got the most options. So it's a tricky mix. It's a very, very tricky mix for bosses. But what we do know is that given a choice, most bosses would prefer for people to be back in the office. It's kind of a little bit like it used to be good. We were in the office, so why wouldn't we be now? So 83% of chief execs expect a full return to the office in the next 3 years. Gone up quite a lot. It's KPMG data on big companies, 500,000 turnover and more. Now, the challenge with this for those CEOs, and I totally understand, and if you're one of them, I understand why you want that, I do get it, is not just the number of people who are resistant to it. So in almost every survey, 80 to 90% of people say they want to work flexibly if they possibly can. The real problem is the depth of feeling that people have about it. And American data tells us that 43% of people say they would rather get divorced than go back to the office 5 days a week. They would rather get divorced or break up with their current partner. Now, I don't know what this tells you about the state of their current relationships, right? Okay, I'm not a therapist, I'm not going there. But it gives you a hint about how strongly people are holding on to this new way of working. It gives you a hint, but it also tells us something interesting in that we might have missed the point. But let's think about this a little bit more. When you look at all those changes, you might think, well, that's all good news, isn't it, really? Because, people must be happier, they've got more of what they wanted, so let's see how that plays out. Well, this is Gallup's State of the Workplace report in 2024. It's 22 countries, 22,000 people. And would anyone like to shout out, Joe, this is your moment, on a percentage basis, how many employees in Ireland say that they are fully engaged at work? 9? Very precise, madam. It's not quite right, which is slight relief to me. Anyone else? It's not far off, though. 13. Okay, it's 10. Okay, so 1 in 10 employees in Ireland is fully engaged. And I'm going to put it to you today that that is the problem we need to be arguing about and thinking about and putting our time into. And we probably need to let go of quite the debate about where we work and focus far more on how we work. Because we know part of why that dissatisfaction is. But a little bit more colour on that. So this is European-wide data because they don't break the Irish data down in this much detail. 13% are engaged, 72% are not engaged. So they're clock watching, potentially looking at other jobs. 16% are actively disengaged. Actively disengaged. Quite sounds like a bit of a euphemism, doesn't it? It actually means they actually want to do you down, okay? They don't like you. And they are metaphorically sticking a fork in the one remaining printer that does actually work. Okay, they're those guys. And you've got more of them, potentially, in a team than you have people who are fully engaged. So what is going on here? We've gone through this journey. People were overwhelmed. We've changed the system. We've given more people, at least some of them, what they want. And they're still pissed off. What is happening? How do we sort this out? Well, let's look at what conditions we're putting people into. So meetings have increased by 2.5 to 3 times on average since the start of COVID. In addition to which, professional office-based workers get an average of 120 emails per day. You want to give me a hum if that feels about right for you? Anyone more than? Give me a hum. They're pretty grumpy, aren't they? Listen, you can hear that. Oh, it's a little bit hostile. Okay, 120. Then we've got Teams and Slack, which are these, discussion boards that are open. Now, Teams is owned by Microsoft. They're far too sensible to tell us how much time people spend on their Teams messages, but Slack gives us the data, and they're reasonably comparable. So Slack users check their Slack 22 times an hour, so that's more than once every 3 minutes, and the average user sends another 70 messages a day. All right, so we're getting up to the 200. It might not be terrible, except these groups. Now, they call them power users. You may have other names for them. I don't want to put anything in your head. They send up to 1,000 messages a day on their chat systems. Anyone want to tell me what the problem is with that? A lot of muttering. Joe, do you want to tell me, or you're done? You're done. Addiction? Yeah. But some buggers got to read them. Because they're coming in, and there's no difference in the ping between whether it's your chief exec saying you're all fired, or our biggest client has just reviewed the contract, or there's free sandwiches down the hallway if you run fast enough, and there's some prawn ones. Go now, guys, go. There's no difference. And the more junior you are and the more insecure you feel, the more vulnerable you are to this overwhelm. And that means that for some people, 75 to 85% of their job is spent in meetings and answering messages, and not doing the job that they were hired for. It's also stressful. This is how stress travels through organizations, and also, obviously, my house. You don't have to be in the same place for that contagion of stress. It's a very, very stressful emotion. Once we get anxious, we share it with people. I turn it off. Sorry, I will just do a quick reading list. I'm not doing a European tour. I'm not selling you tickets, you're safe. Reading list, and there's a very good book on managing stress in organizations by a guy called Rob Cross that I'd really recommend. He's been in the vlog as well, so I'll put that up again at the end as well, but I just wanted to give you a chance with it. So you've got stress, you've got all of this overwhelm of messages, and then you've got generational change. Should we do a little hum? Any boomers in the room? 46 to 64, very quiet. But we're going to do a little hum. Yeah, got a few. Okay, Gen X, 65 to 90, that's me. Lots of X. Y, 81 to 2000. Gen Z, got any? Come on, how many have we got? About 3 down there. Okay, fine. We can take the piss out of them a little bit without hopefully getting beaten up at the end. Right, so what we end up with at this world of work is we've got, the way to think about this is you've got the boomers. Oh, sorry, there's something I need to say about generational research first, which is that it's very poorly defined. They're very broad generalizations, okay? So if you're a boomer and you're the biggest boomer on TikTok, please don't have a go at me afterwards, okay? These are very broad groups. But generally, what we see with boomers is a sense that as they went through the world of work, things broadly worked for them. The deal, as it were, kind of worked. You did boring jobs, you had annoying bosses, maybe they were difficult, but if you worked hard and kept going, you probably would keep your job, you probably would be able to buy a property, and you probably would end up with a pension beyond the state pension, and quite likely your standard of living would feel like it was getting better, particularly in the context of the war and your parents. Let's skip over to Gen Z, okay, because their experience of work is not feeling like that. When there are news reports in London about the property market prices in Dublin, I think we can agree you've got a problem as much as we do. But for this generation, they spend so much money on rent, they don't think they're ever going to potentially be able to buy a house or a flat. They don't think their standard of living is likely to get better. They don't think, on the whole, that this will be affected by how hard they work. And so, in that context, instead of being willing to put up with things that are boring or difficult or stressful, they're more likely to think, well, does this job have some meaning for me? Is it good for my mental health? Does it suit me day to day? Because I'm not sure what the long-term win of this is going to be, right? So I want to feel happy day to day. Otherwise, I don't quite know what the point of all of this is. And the other thing which they think about, we'll come to in a second, is potentially how do I get out of this? Do I move abroad potentially, or do I set up my own business? Now, my prediction towards 2030, and I know you'll hear lots of other stuff about AI and robotics, I'm not going to go on about it at any length, is that our talent market globally is going to get more and more complicated. I would love to have an organised Tupperware drawer like this in my house. You know those organising shows on the telly? Like, I could watch them for days. But in reality, this is how my Tupperware looks. And actually, I think that's a reasonable representation for how the talent market is changing. Because where we might have had a reasonable match of skills for what we need in an economy, tops and bottoms, we now have enormous global demand for very specific jobs. I'm not going to go through these in any detail, but broadly, the headline, for those of you who've got children, nieces and nephews, very, very technical jobs that also require creativity, judgment, and communications. So where you mix something very technical with something very human, very much going to be more and more in demand. The other thing that's going to be really in demand are things that we can't do with robots and computers. So electricians, plumbers, people who look after your house, lots of healthcare, lots of mental health care, stuff Sana was talking about, policy making, community building. Those kind of skills are also going to be valuable. And then there's going to be a class of jobs that diminish potentially over time. They may not disappear. I've kept this list really short because I didn't want to piss anyone off too much today. I don't know what you all do. But fairly short list, but things that can be easily replicated, we will expect. And that's going to lead to all sorts of battles for talent. And those battles are going to very much change from an idea we have now that immigration might be a bad thing to us. And you see it with Musk and the rows about the visas over in the States at the moment. How do we get the best minds, the best technical skills? How do we move them? And in that context, a third of Irish young people are considering moving abroad. Somebody told me this morning, to do my makeup, that somebody she knows runs a business here won't hire anyone young unless they've already been to Australia, because otherwise they'll just bloody go and then they won't come back. So if they've been and come back, she'll take them. Otherwise, no chance. And the other thing is, it's not just Australia and Canada and all the places that you've heard about. It's also, you know, the Middle East. I mean, Saudi 2030, the contracts, the money, the lifestyle, potentially they're creating for people. Have I said a lot of words? Hang on, I'll keep going. Right, okay. We'll take a little break. Okay, so what else happens in the next couple of years? Well, Sana touched on it. This is going to get more and more political. It's going to get more divided. And employers, I think, are going to have to make very big decisions about where they want to sit. Feels like Facebook made a big decision about that yesterday. And how they position themselves is going to change to help people out. You know, is this the right employer for you? So give me a hum if this feels like a good employer for you. Give me a hum now. Silence. Nobody wants a gilet. Come on, lads. Come on. Obviously, they don't hire ladies, so it was only going to be the men anyway. So this is Goldman Sachs. This is their people page. You obviously have to have a gilet. It's giving you a very clear idea of what the brand might be about, and either that's going to appeal to you or it's not, and that's fine. Anyone know who this is? This is their management team, according to their website. Anyone know? Someone just said it. Don't be shy. Drop your bottles. Tell me. It's Lego. It's Lego, and one of their core values is play. So they're living that. So you're kind of seeing this kind of like, are you for me? What kind of model do I have? Is this going to be the right place for us to work? But what does that mean for all of you as you think about your businesses, your teams? What do you need to take into 2030? Well, I'm going to tell you something that maybe contradicts what Sana said. And she said the people are the complicated bit. And they are, I get it. But on the other hand, we have an enormous amount of research that tells us that people are very predictable about how they value a good job. And all around the world, they've looked at what are the factors of somebody who goes out to their friends and family at the weekend and says, "Do you know what? I've got a good job. I've got a good job." And strangely enough, pay isn't a massive factor, much less than we assume. If people have got enough to live on in the area that they live in, appreciate in Dublin that's a lot of money, then they're generally, it's not money is not the factor. The factors are all here, and we can't look at all of them today. But what I thought was I'd just pull out a couple and maybe unlock something for you. What I'd love at the end of this, we've got 10 more minutes, is for you to maybe just think about one or two things that you could take into 2025 to really think about building your team, building those connections as you move towards 2030. So the first really, really consistent thing is being heard. Can I go back? Everyone wants to be heard, but no one wants to listen. Any of you who've called your bank or mobile phone provider will know this. Anybody who's tried to call a medical services, that we're all desperate to have a voice. Now, when I say this to leadership teams, they normally shout at me. And they say something like, Christine, what the hell are you talking about? We are communicating from 7 in the morning until 11 o'clock at night. We never, ever don't answer an email. We return every call that we get. We cannot communicate anymore. What is it that these people actually want? And of course, what we want as people is to be heard. We want some meaning. We want to be seen. We want to feel like we're having an impact and somebody's noticed us. And the bigger teams get and the more complicated they get, the harder that can be. Now, if we had more time and we hadn't already been asked to do some things, one of the things I often do in rooms like this is to ask people to spend 3 minutes just listening to the person next to them. Don't worry, you're looking very scared. I'm not making you do it. You don't need to run for the exits. It's okay. 3 minutes just listening to the person next to you without interrupting them. That's it. 3 minutes. If they stop talking, that's fine, just wait. And having done this hundreds and hundreds of times, I can tell you what would happen. One is, a lot of you, for the 3 minutes, would be sat like this. Both hands over your mouth, because you can't actually not interrupt. You don't know how to do it. You just find it so difficult. The only way you can do is physically stop you. The other is that you would come away afterwards and come and speak to me, and you would say things like, I've worked with that person for 15 years, and I heard them say things I'd never heard them say before. Or, I only met that person for the first time today, and I think I'm going to be friends with them. It was such an interesting, we just had so much in common. Or sometimes they say things out loud that they know to be true that had never consciously thought before. So the power of just giving ourselves a bit of time to listen to our colleagues, listen to each other, maybe to think ourselves, is really, really easy to underestimate, especially in a world of quick technology, busy. Now, there are some really practical ways to use this that are really easy. Don't start meetings until everyone's spoken. We agreed up front. We're all on these boring meetings. People are talking. Microsoft data tells us that on any Microsoft Teams calls, like 45-ish% of people are multitasking. But that data only applies to other Microsoft products. So if they're emailing Microsoft, it knows. If they're feeding the cat or WhatsApping their mum about the weekend, it doesn't have a clue. So really, how much time are we spending on these calls when we're not actually listening or talking? It's a total frustrating waste of time. So get everyone to talk at the beginning of the meeting. Ask them for one word. Ask them to hum if the room's too big. Get a two-way conversation. Allow them to feel part of it. Give 10 minutes a week to each of your direct reports. There's loads of research that this is transformative. What's going on for you? How can I help? Don't do the talking. Okay, ask a few questions, sure. Give people the space. Spend 3 minutes listening to someone else. Swap, let them listen to you, see what comes out of your mouth. Maybe use it as a way to resolve issues. If you've got real tension in a team and you say, look, take 5 minutes, just tell me. I'm not going to interrupt you, just tell me what's going on for you. And then you give them 5 minutes back of what your take is. You end up in a different place because you've properly heard what they've got to say. So seeing people and hearing them. Oh, I'm going the wrong way. This is not good. Okay. The second thing is to ask, and an exercise that I do a lot, is to give leaders of teams and give them a sort of metaphorical magic wand. So they've got unlimited power, unlimited budget. Create the team that you want. Make it work however you want, okay? You want to recruit people. You want it to be a joyful place to work. What's going to work for you? And very briefly, they dally with having Harry Styles singing them into work on the reception in the morning, and that's fine. And sometimes they want a roller coaster, and they either really, really want puppies in the office, or they really, really don't. But as soon as they've got past that, the things they want are unbelievably prosaic. And only one group, and I've done this 100 times, has ever asked for more money in this exercise, and that was a bunch of extremely highly paid tax accountants. So I just leave that one with you. The things that they quickly come to are they want fewer meetings, fewer messages, and technology and systems that actually work. That could be the parking system, it could be the locker system, it could be the Wi-Fi, the printer. They just want stuff that works. And all of you in this room have the power today to go, hell's bells, less meetings in 25. What can we take out? Shorten them, get rid of them, ditch them. What are we not going to communicate about? Agree it as a team. Let's reduce this. Let's get people focused, because the job satisfaction of being able to focus on a task, do it properly, finish it, that is worth so much more than any of us really think. The next thing is to understand how power works in organizations. And one of the interesting questions I ask people a lot, so, are you powerful, sir? Are you powerful? Do you have a powerful... Oh, no, Christine, I'm just CFO. global company. I don't have any power. I just report to the CEO and the board, actually, so I just implement decisions. The trouble with that, of course, is that when we look at power in organizations, we look up because we're tribal beings and we look to see if we're being accepted and if we're approved of. So we study our bosses and our bosses' bosses. What are they interested in? What matters to them? How do they communicate? And we know them really, really well. And if we ask people the same questions about more junior colleagues, they find it harder to answer. Now, the scary implication for this is that everyone around you is studying you because you may not feel powerful, but they think you are powerful. So when you come into work and the cat's been sick on your pillow and you're in a bit of a piss about it, they think it's them. So we as leaders have to really think carefully about the weather. What mood do we bring to people? And what do they attribute it to? And really stop underestimating the impact we have. You ever work with bullies? If you ever challenge a bully, they say, I'm just trying to do good work. They need to be less fragile. And you're like, you have no idea of the impact that you're having. You don't need to do this. So choose your weather carefully. How are you going to turn up on Monday? Who are you on Monday? How are you going to use all this technology that's coming out? Because I would urge, it's kind of a separate piece of work really, but I would urge you to be really thoughtful about AI. You're going to be inundated in the next 5 years with products and shortcuts and, things that you can cut out of your system, people you can lose. But every single one of those is likely to have a cost in terms of connection and seeing people. So you're going to have to make choices. How much is this going to cost me in terms of the culture, in terms of how people interact? We already have some interesting results on how AI hiring works. Too long didn't read. It's a nightmare. So be really thoughtful of where you use the AI. And the final thing is that teams really want growth. They want stimulation. They want ideas. So turning up at stuff like this is massively valuable. Taking stuff back, sharing stuff with your teams, and thinking about it. Now, I want to take you back to Mandy and her birthing suite before we finish. Because midwives are a great example for us of how this all works. If you have a small team or an individual midwife working, their job satisfaction is generally really, really high, okay? They do important work, they are seen, they are heard, they are very important. And even in the darkest days, and it's a job that has very, very challenging dark days, they know that they have a voice and they're seen, and they feel valued. But you take those same midwives and you put them into a complex medical system. You take away the slack and the capacity they have to make the right choices for the people they're taking care of. You give them some systems that don't work very well. You stop listening to them about what they need in terms of breaks or support or people or uniform or anything else, and suddenly they have some of the lowest job satisfaction in the market. And it's one of the reasons that our big medical systems around the world have such shortages of midwives. And the learning from this could be depressing, but it isn't. The learning is whether something's a good job or not is not innate to the job. It's about what Sana said. It's about the people. It's about the interactions. And we have the choice, all of us in this room, to think about whether we create really good jobs or really shit jobs. And I really urge you to think about some of the things that you could do. That's the reading list. I've been Christine Armstrong. It's been lovely to talk to you. Thanks very much.
Working 9 to 5.